the two, we have a budget that you and the department heads put together, but it did not include wastewater and Snowball, because those are enterprise type of accounts, right? Is that correct?
Correct. So yeah, they're
right.
a bit different in the way that we handle them and review them.
So are we making a recommendation for actually 2 budgets?
3. Well,
okay. Yeah. All right. Yes, 3. All right. So and if you don't mind, if you could help repeat that a couple of times, because it is a little confusing, because when people come up to you in town and say, well, what's the budget? And you go, well, that's kind of tricky to come up with the one answer, one number. So anyway, I'll let you, if you don't mind, when we get started, which it looks like we're almost there, if you could run that, if you could review that again. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Nancy, do you have a question or a comment before we get started? Okay. Nancy, do you realize you have your hand up? I would say probably not. There we go. Well, I would say we should get started. This is the March 17, hope the last budget committee meeting, maybe not, unless we need to do some extra work for the town of Camden, March 17, 2022. And I've asked Audra to basically run down the fact that we've already worked on the town budget in these last 2 weeks. But tonight we're going to finish with the town budget. We're also going to work on 2 more budgets for the wastewater department and the Snowball, which are a different type of account. So we're actually hopefully working on 3, but I'll let her, just because sometimes it's confusing. I'm sure you all get it, but I need a little help sometimes. So go ahead, Audra, please.
Sure. So as many of you are aware, we have, in addition to the general fund budget, 2 special revenue centers, which is wastewater and the Snowball. So the way that they work is that all of the revenue has to match up or exceed the expenses. So they're sort of seen as business type enterprises that the town runs. So they sit outside the general fund budget, and the way that they're reviewed and approved is just a little bit different. So your role is very similar in that you provide an advisory review and vote to the select board, but the select board has the ultimate authority to approve the wastewater and the Snowball budgets. So instead of the process we go through with the general fund budget, where you folks review it, you present your version of the budget to the select board, then they do their review, and then ultimately it goes to voters for approval. The Snowball and the wastewater treatment plants budget is reviewed by all of you, and then it goes to the select board for final approval.
So there's no change in the wastewater and the Snowball budget by this austere group tonight.
You can certainly recommend changes.
Okay, thank you. All right, is everybody clear on that? Anybody have any questions? comments? All right. So I believe, based on our agenda, we're starting out with community service organizations, which, as Janice said, is that orange sheet was in our packet. It's quite straightforward. I have a couple of questions, but I would rather just have everybody make sure they've looked at it, understand what we're looking at, and how it fits into our community.
I have a question.
Nancy.
Yeah, my question is just based on these trust funds that we have. And I was listening into the select board meeting the other night when I think it was Bob Falciani who mentioned that if anyone in the community has problems, given the increase in cost of fuel oil in keeping themselves warm, that there are trust funds available that the town manages to cover that. And now we've got requests that presented as submitted to be funded from trust funds. I'm kind of curious about how much there is in those trust funds and how they're managed, and are they increasing in value? I imagine.
Well,
How much
Nancy,
money have we got to dispose of, I guess is what I'm asking.
Nancy, could I make a suggestion that we let Audra explain? You're a tiny bit off topic.
This is on the provider agencies.
So just to clarify, Nancy, the community service organizations that are going to be presenting to you tonight, they sit outside the trust fund process. So when the town disperses money through the trust funds, whether it be to individuals or provider agencies, it goes through the trust fund committee. So that's why you won't see a lot of like the social service organizations or, ones who provide direct assistance to residents. So the community service providers that are here tonight, they've got sort of a broader mission and scope. And what they do, while very important to the community, isn't something that we can fund through trust funds. So that's why they're presenting to you tonight, because their requests will sit within the general fund budget.
Okay, all right. So that American Red Cross, coastal transportation, et cetera, that is all apart from what we're considering tonight.
Correct, yeah. And it used to be that some of those requests were funded through the general fund budget, but after sort of looking at their scope and mission and what they provide, they're just a better fit for trust fund assistance than general fund.
Okay.
Thank you, Audra. Does everybody understand that? Okay. Great. Thanks, Nancy. Thank you, Audra. So why don't we start with the presentations? Who goes first? Let's see. Who's with the American Legion?
Evening, that's me, that's Jeff Sugforth.
Thank you, Jeff.
Hi, Dad.
Does anybody have any questions for Ed? Or have you looked at the materials that are in our packet? You understand what they're asking for? Well, why don't we, I'm not sure if that's so do you want to continue on?
Are you suggesting that we vote on each one or that we vote on the package?
I think we ought to just continue on through the list.
Okay.
And vote on the total package when we get to the bottom. Okay.
Right.
These are just presentations. The Garden Club, it says it's a new addition to this funding request. Do we have anyone from the Garden Club here? Okay.
Yes, I'm Deborah Stokes. I'm the president of the Camden Garden Club. And although we have been receiving funds from from the town for, I think, 3 years now. Our request has gone up due to what everyone else is finding out, and that is the rising costs and availability of doing some of the activities that we do. And the one particular one that the club cannot physically do itself is taking care of the baskets of flowers in the summer and watering, particularly watering those, and all the areas where we have flower boxes, flower beds, the traffic islands, the arch between the two towns of Camden and Rockport.
So is this additional, Deborah, is this additional request from 3,000 to 4,000 going to address that?
We believe it will. I mean, we're ever hopeful. And now that the pandemic is becoming more of an endemic, we're hoping that our major fundraiser this year allows us to raise more funds to take care of the responsibilities that we have for the town and the surrounding community. And that includes providing scholarships to our senior graduates for anyone who is entering a program that is within one of the natural sciences.
That's interesting. Wow, thank you. Anybody have any questions for Deborah? Thank you, Deborah.
I have a question, and it's just something that I've noticed as driving by. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, that section on Route 1 as you're going towards Lincolnville, where you kind of go around that corner, those areas in between that get planted every year. I'm just curious if you guys always do annuals or if you put in perennials ever.
Well,
Because
Courtney, that's a good.
Yeah. Sorry.
Actually, that's a real good question, because that's one of the ways that we've been trying to reduce expenses. We've been moving toward perennials. There are some considerations that have to be done, but yes, absolutely.
I always wondered that, because it just seemed like every year there was always something new in there, which, is cost obviously, but then I was like, why don't they just put something in there that will come up every year that's easy? And, obviously things will have to get divided at some point, but I was just curious about that. So that's exciting, that kind of moving in that direction.
I guess I have a question about that same space. Are you the people who put out those interesting lights that are encased in ice, or is that some mysterious gnome who comes in the night and puts them there?
That is not the gardening club.
Okay. I don't know who it is.
There was, Nancy, I remember when I was at Long Grain, there was a woman who would come in and she would go around and she would bring them. I don't remember what her name is, but she just loved doing it. So I'm not sure if it's the same person or not, but I have a feeling it is.
Mystery. It'll be a mystery. Thank you, Deborah. Any other questions? The Camden Rockport Historical Society. And is that Heather?
It is indeed. Hi, Peter.
Great. Good to see you. Thank you, Heather. Go ahead.
Yes, good evening, everybody. Did anybody have questions for the Historical Society about our submitted budget?
Heather, I guess I have just an idle question about the location of the society. That's part of the library, right?
No, it is not. We are just south of Hannaford on Route 1. It's what's also known as the Conway House.
Right. Okay. So what is your relationship to the Camden Historical, whatever it is, in the library?
Well, I used to be director at the Camden Library. So the way that was set up, originally there were four sort of, it was a consortial arrangement between the Camden Rockport Historical Society, Historic Resources Committee, Camden Public Library, and the Lincolnville Historical Society. That was way back in like 2005. Eventually that consortium split back apart, and the paper collection went to the Walsh History Center at the Camden Library. the focus of the Historical Society is more living history, interpretation and education, and objects. So we have the historic 1780s homestead and barn and other outbuildings. So that's the difference between the two. We do have some overlap and similarities in the collections, but ours is more object-based.
And is that the only sort of effort that you make is at the Conway House, or do you have in mind to do other types of, I mean, $4,000 is not a very big budget,
Right,
but
right.
to do other kinds of outreach, maybe with the schools or something?
Yeah, so we used to do that. And with COVID, of course, everything shifted.
Right.
So like a lot of other organizations, particularly collecting institutions, those shut down to the public, us included. However, we are back up running and will be open this season to the public. So starting with Maple Sugar Sunday in just a couple weeks. We also have a full schedule with the living history interpreters, the troops at Camden, which were present on our campus last year. And they were there on a monthly basis through October. So that's doing outreach to learners of all ages, not just kids. And then we have some other plans in the works.
That's great. Well, that's great. Sarah, do you have a question?
Yeah, just a quick one, just because it caught my eye. I just saw that last year you had doubled the budget and then it are back down in par, or on par with what you had. It was there. I just couldn't recall. Yeah, if there was some, I forgot from last year what the shift was.
So what happened, I think you're talking about the 2021 where we had a large outlay unexpectedly of money because we were notified by our insurance company that virtually all of the buildings had to be re-roofed. And then we also had a major expense, over $20,000 to repair and re-shingle half of the barn roof. So that accounts for the great expense, but things hopefully have normalized now, and we are back down to a minimal budget. We don't have a paid staff. Everybody is volunteer. So
yeah, I was just curious because I didn't know if because you need to double it, if going back down to where you were before.
Yeah, I mean,
makes sense.
Honestly, when we put together the budget, trying to be mindful of, it's been a tough year for everybody. So not trying to ask too much. I mean, certainly we're an organization on a shoestring, and we do have ongoing expenses, and I do anticipate some increased expenses with the ramping up of the more of the education programs and the living history interpretation programs. But we're, $4,000 is, we could certainly stretch that quite a ways.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you, Heather. Any
Thanks,
other
Peter.
questions? Okay, thank you so much, Heather. Okay, looks like it's Ray's turn. I think there we go.
Nature Center, and I'd like to thank the town of Camden for all the support you've given us over the years. And I'd also like to thank this committee for considering our request for $1,000 again this year. When you look at our budget, that's a small number, but let me tell you, for every nonprofit, every dollar counts. And we have been, I think, very successful in weathering the pandemic over the last couple of years, even though we haven't been able to have our major fundraiser, the kitchen tour. But we have been fortunate in securing quite a few different foundation grants and holding on to our membership. I hope all of you are familiar with Merry Spring, but if you have any questions about the nature park or about our budget, please ask.
Well, we do know, Ray, that it gets a lot of traffic from
Yes.
our visitors, spring, summer, and fall, and even the winter. So, so congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any other comments? Okay, thank you, Ray. Appreciate that. Let's see. Jill, are you here for the why? No.
Oh, yeah, so a little background, I think a lot of us know, I know Nancy had mentioned this before too. The Teen Center, the last request for funding was in 2019 for the 2020 school year. And then the Teen Center was sold actually in August of 2020 for many different reasons. And I think what's happening now is I'm on the board of the Y, just to clarify that. We're working with the school system to sort of use some space once the old Mary Taylor Middle School is finished being renovated, or bus barn. So I think there's some conversations going on, but there is no opportunity, no space this upcoming budget yet for programming for the teens. So that's why a request was not put in, but who knows what will happen in the future. But I think the idea, without all the huge overhead, the costs will be a lot lower for running the programming. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you,
good.
Jill.
Thanks.
Does anybody have any questions on that item that's changed,
Well,
basically removed?
basically removed. So yeah, nothing
Right.
to vote on there.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all. Any questions overall? Do we have a motion that we could kind of move on?
What
Oh.
about the McGonagall watershed?
Yeah.
Excuse me?
The McGonagall Watershed Association, $6,500.
Yeah, so Peter, I was
don't-
going to say that's not on the orange sheet, but it's in the budget.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So
And
this
Aaron
is
Bailey's
a
here.
new addition to these tax supported requests.
So just to give some background on this one, it used to sit in the Parks and Recreation budget, or more specifically, the recreation budget. However, we moved it here this year because just the way that the work is going to, split between the town and the Watershed Association is going to be a little bit different. But Aaron's
Okay.
here to talk about the Watershed Association.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Audra. Hi, Aaron.
Hi, good evening. My name is Aaron Bailey, and I'm the new Executive Director for the McGonagall Watershed and the new Lake Warden. We're here again requesting some funds to help with various programs that we do in the watershed for McGonagall Lake, McGonagall River, which includes the Water Stewards program. We check all incoming boats several days a week that come into the lake. Last year we did over 1,400. We've seen a major increase in traffic on the lake over the years and since COVID, as well as water quality monitoring. We do that several times a week on the lake and in the river for the town. So the money that we've requested goes towards those items, as well as I'm being employed by the association, but I'm also the full-time lake warden. So besides Camden PD that you have there, I'm kind of the eyes and ears of the lake and the watershed, and unless they're needed, or until hopefully not that they're needed.
Right. And what was the amount again, Aaron?
It's 6,500.
Great. Sorry about that.
No
That's
problem.
great. That's terrific. Any other questions for Aaron?
Yeah, I have a quick one. Aaron, you mentioned checking boats, and I'm just curious, like how and where does that happen? What's the procedure?
Yep. So we have people at Route 105 landing and the 52 boat landing. And when someone brings typically the motor boat to the landing, we have people checking them for milfoil and any invasive plants on the boats, on the trailers. So we do that check to make sure it's not introduced into our lake. And knock on wood, at this point, we do not have milfoil or any of those species in our lake, unlike some lakes in Maine that do have them. So.
Yeah, I know that's a big problem. Thank you.
So what is the overall health of the lake, Aaron?
The overall health is very good. We've, been keeping statistics for many, many years now for water quality, and we haven't seen, a whole lot of change. Obviously, it can change after a rainstorm and come back, but, we didn't, it's been, a long time since we've had to close, a beach or Barrett's Cove or something for swimming, or if we do, it's for a day, and it might be because it rained or the pile of geese was in there or something. But overall, the water quality in and around the lake and the river have been very good.
We are very lucky to have Mr. Bailey be part of working with Randy and working with a lot of other Lincolnville and other groups in the area. So this is great. Any other questions for Aaron? So the total that we have on this sheet of requests for tax supported requests is 18.5. Is that clear, Audra? Is that correct? All right. We have a motion. Anybody?
I move we accept the town manager's proposed budget of 18,500 for community services.
I second.
Any questions, comments, criticisms? All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
You.
Thank you.
Garden Club, thanks you very much.
Okay. So next on the agenda is it the Snowball budget, right? I'm going to say that is yes, right?
There is the snowball budget.
Has everybody had a chance to look over all 12 pages of it?
I do have a presentation if you folks would like me to do that.
That would be terrific, Beth.
Okay. Okay, so hi from the Snowball. I'm going to do this small little presentation here about the Snowball. The Snowball is an alpine ski and snow sport area with a historic toboggan chute. It is managed and operated by full-time Camden employees and annual seasonal, about approximately 70 seasonal employees and 70 seasonal volunteers. The Snowball is a major draw for visitors to Camden. There's also a strong mid-coast contingent that relies on and seeks out the Snowball for winter recreation. The Snowball budget is based on a 60-day operating season, and we strive to be an asset to the community in a variety of ways. Some of our statistics, we have 15 trails, 8 of them are lit for night skiing. We have a triple chairlift, a double chairlift, and a conveyor lift, and a 400-foot long wooden toboggan chute. For staffing and departments by budget line, we have 2 full-time in admin for 6 months. The other 6 months we share with recreation. We have 1 full-time custodian for 5 months and 1 part-time custodian. In the rental equipment shop, we have 1 full-time rental shop manager who's 16 weeks and 3 part-time technicians. We have 5 part-time attendants that come in for Toboggan Nationals. And under Alpine, which is our largest budget line, we have 6 full-time mountain ops, 2 part-time. You can see we have ski school instructors, 4 paid per diem patrollers. We have race coaches, ticket sellers, terrain park rangers, groomers, lift attendants, snowmakers. And the positions you see in yellow are also the positions that we share expenses with Parks, Recreation, and Cemetery. our volunteers and their roles. We have around 70 volunteers, and they do all kinds of different duties for us. We wouldn't be able to make it work out here without them. This year we had 35 individuals on ski patrol that donated approximately 2,600 hours here. We have 5 alpine race competition coaches that donate their time. We have some ski school instructors that like to donate their time to work with the 4th grade Learn to Ski program. And we have mountain ambassadors who used to be called mountain stewards, but we changed the name this year. 26 individuals, and they donate all kinds of hours, both on the mountain and over at the toboggan chute. We have some folks that volunteer some time to take photos for us. And so with the volunteers, we approximately had about 5,900 hours that were donated to the Snowball this year. 2022-2023 season highlights. So we've operated for 55 days. We're on our the snow is melting as we speak. We only had 39 inches of natural snow. The Snowball is a popular destination for families looking to be outdoors. Our season pass sales exceeded expectations again this year. Our daily lift, ski and ride school lessons, and fall foliage chairlift rides also exceeded revenues this year. And we hosted more than 40,000 skier visits, which again is like last year, but over the average that we typically see, 30 to 32,000. We were able to run a successful toboggan national event this year that raised over $63,000 for the town. So for FY23 budget details, I am basing FY23 budget off FY22 to get and their actuals to get a clearer view of the winter. Our wage lines will slightly increase across the board. And we foresee general liability insurance going up because of the increased skier visits again. And our vehicle maintenance line increased due to deferred purchases of a new groomer. We are going to increase our snowmaking because we typically we rent 3 compressors, which we had a really hard time this year getting them because the construction industry wasn't letting up their compressors. So we're looking at possibly purchasing 2 used ones and an increase in snowmaking electricity. And that's it. Any questions?
I have a question for the administration. The Snowball budget that we got in the mail from Janice is not in our folders. Is that correct? Because I can't find it there. So unfortunately, I can't look at the budget because it's in my computer and I'm on my computer right now. But I think there are a lot of questions to be raised about this. I'm willing to hear what other people have to say first.
Well, and Nancy, you're correct. These 2 items that Janice sent us,
right,
were not part of our booklet earlier on, and they are separate. And Beth also needed to kind of assemble those kind of as the season wound down, if you will. And I think it always comes in late, and that's fine. We can, I'm sure Beth can answer some questions if you have general questions, but it would be great if you could maybe log off and log on and just try to get a PDF to look at these pages. Anyway, okay.
You're talking to a Luddite. Peter, I don't know how to do that.
Oh, okay.
Peter, if it would be
I
helpful.
know, I should have printed it out. I didn't realize that
Okay.
it wasn't going to be in the.
Okay,
book.
Audra's got a
Just go
suggestion.
with my general impression, then you'll correct me when I'm wrong, okay?
No.
If it would be helpful, we could screen share a copy of the budget so that you're able to kind of scroll through and talk about it.
Yeah, I
That
don't
would be awesome.
need to see all the items anyway. My biggest concern is snowmaking and then marketing the
Well,
but we'll get to that.
I have a question and this might help you. And this is directly, this is very good, Nancy. Thank you. So Beth, we had a contract for those 3 compressors in, we'll say, October of 2021.
Actually, last
Uh,
May, we signed the contract.
Well, okay, you had a contract,
Yep.
and was there a clause in the contract so that if the supplier broke it, you could sue them? So this is not really a great contract.
Well, it's rental equipment where,
Yeah.
and I don't have a lot of good answers for you, as we were just told by the company in Scarborough that they were no longer or weren't going to be able to get all three. They did supply us with one. Rochelle worked her magic and found two in New York.
Right.
So
Well,
it
okay.
did cost
It-
more,
it-
and it was more of a headache because we didn't know when they were going to arrive and if they were going to arrive. So
So is there a plan? You just mentioned that you're thinking about buying compressors. Is there a strategic plan to have us own compressors and have them be taken care of and see it in a budget? And actually, 5 years from now, we're gonna know what we own, and it's gonna work out just great.
yes, we do have
Okay.
50,000 in this budget set aside to purchase one of the compressors, but we feel we may be having another surplus from this season that we may be able to buy the second one with. So right now, we're just working on the details and seeing where we stand with this year's operating budget, and we will make a decision. Obviously, we'll go to the select board to get their approval, but we'll make a decision about purchasing those once we know what we've got.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Does
I just have a
anybody-
general question. I'm
Great.
not sure if you can see me. This is Jill, just because the screen sharing, I know I can't see everybody now. Kind of general question. It looks like you haven't had a line item for town monetary support. That was back in 2020. Does the taxpayer contribute to the Snowball, or is it a little mini business that, you had great revenues this year, and last year too, fantastic. And so does the town contribute directly? Is there anything that I'm missing in this? And if there is a shortfall, say for instance, you have a terrible, ticket sales are less than projected, is there a mechanism for then covering that gap?
There's several different ways the town has done it over the years. They have had a match that has helped. They have had us carry the amount forward to the following operation to see if we could make it up over a different year. And then they have used it out of contingency before.
Okay. And how has that happened recently, or it looks like you've had a couple of really good years in a row?
I think 2016 or 17 was the last time we were with a deficit.
Okay, great.
And that was a lot of that was due to the redevelopment and not being open on time.
And to Jill, to answer the other part of your question, there are a few expenses that, it would just be, not financially feasible for the Snowball to pay for them on their own. So like the workers' comp insurance, just because, it's a strange setup where, we're sharing employees between the Snowball and Parks and Rec. So the workers' comp insurance sits completely within the general fund budget.
Right.
So that's kind of one thing. The redevelopment debt service is paid for by taxpayers. And other than that, there are some little things here and there, but by and large, it's like you said, a mini business that, needs to generate enough revenue to support itself.
Thank you.
Can I point out something that I think we lose sight of with the Snowball sometimes when we talk about revenue and expenses? It is very important to the rest of the town. It brings in, I don't know how you would ever be able to put a value on, but maybe somebody can, how much money people spend on hotels and restaurants and hiring various things when they come here to use the Snowball. I think it's a really important asset to the town, and I think it deserves all the support we can give it. My particular beef with the Snowball has always been that it is so highly seasonal. I would love to figure out, I don't have the answer, but I would love to have some of you people who are Parks and Recreation specialists to figure out how that kind of revenue could be maybe not duplicated in the summertime, but at least we could increase the revenue and increase, not just the revenue, increase the use of the Snowball and market it as a four-season resort, I suppose, or something like that. That's where that's where my passion is. Let's put it that way.
Thank you,
But
Nancy.
I think we mustn't lose sight of the importance in terms of the town's economy as a whole, of the importance to the town. In terms of people who come here to use the Snowball and spend money all over the place as well.
Well, you bring up a good point, Nancy. So that's great. Thank you. I want to pick up on that in a second. Does anybody else have any questions?
Peter. Yeah. This is Sarah. Hey, hello. I just had let me do full screen again so I can see the screen, but I'll ad lib without picking the numbers. The tubing, I know that it looked like there was about a 16, again, I don't have my rain glasses, but it looked like there was a pretty significant budget. And then actuals looked like it was just under 1,000. And then 6,000, being asked for this budget. I guess, is there consideration or thought around, again, maybe it was because of the timing in which it picked up and icy conditions or what have you, but is there a question of potentially rolling those rentals or use of that into the season pass users and then, gaining some revenue from those that are just visiting? I was just curious, like that number is obviously, very different from what had been budgeted. So if you could speak to that.
We were bringing tubing back this year, and we had to have an engineer work on putting the Mighty Mite lift back, and he didn't get his drawings back to us till mid-November, so we did not have time to install that lift for this season. So we actually only really opened the tubing hill a few times on weekends, because A, the conditions were not great, and B, we didn't have the staff. We didn't have people that would work it. So that's why that number is down. We do anticipate the lift going in this summer and beefing up tubing for next season. So that's the answer to that.
Thank you. Thank you, Beth. So I have two questions. One is pretty easy, I hope. We have a tenant. You rent space to a sports shop, a gear shop, a bike shop. And it's the retail lease. Is that line item 920132? So that's 12,000. That you anticipate 12,000.
That's correct.
And I see way back in 21 and 20, it's 8,000, 9,000. But if you don't mind my asking, Beth, what's the condition of that building that you rent for $12,000? How's it looking?
I think I went to school in it in 4th grade, Peter, to be honest.
Okay, and so you're telling me
it's old. We got
okay.
it from the school, I think back in like 98.
Are there any plans to make a tenant successful? I mean, I worry about falling through the floor in that building.
We are hoping to apply for some grants to get started on a new event center out here. That's really all I can say about that until that happens. We still need those temporary buildings to do the functions and services that they do.
Okay,
Well, all right, go ahead, Peter.
Well, no, okay. So you've just basically offered up my next question: is what is the 5 and 10-year plan for this asset? Because Audra came to the select board 6 months or a year ago and said about, or maybe it was even less than that. It was 3 or 4 months ago, and talked about a $500,000 grant that I never heard about it. I never knew anything about it. What are the plans for the Snowball? The public has never been told what is the grand 5-year plan.
Hopefully get a grant and get the foundation active in fundraising again. And
So when you say get a grant, what does that mean?
So I'll speak to this one. So there's as a result of the stimulus money that's sort of flowing to different federal agencies, the Economic Development Administration has just funds for different projects available that they never had in the past. And one program that has sort of come out of the stimulus money approved by the Biden administration focuses on projects that seek to bolster outdoor recreation, travel, and tourism. So we thought this is, and they do 80-20 grants. So the federal government will pay for 80% of the project, and you need to come up with 20% local match. And so we're working with the foundation to submit a grant application that would include the development of the event center, and it's the same facility design that was part of the redevelopment that happened back in 2014, 2015. So that's part of the application, as well as development of mountain biking facilities, which is focused on, making it more of a 4-season recreational center. So that's what we're working on. The foundation has been incredibly supportive, so they want to commit to providing the match to that grant. And I think right now we're looking at sort of a $7 million project. And all of that would be either a combination of grant and foundation funded, no taxpayer support, hopefully.
Peter,
Nancy, what do you?
well, I think we're all kind of fumbling around and being quite polite about this problem of the Snowball. And I want to reiterate, I'm a strong supporter of it, and I have been all my life. I learned to ski there probably so many years ago that most of you won't even know what I'm talking about. And I've supported it ever since. And I think it's a huge asset to the town. But I also feel that there is no sense of forward thinking there, and there hasn't been for a long time. This idea that, we are going through a period of drastic climate change, 32 inches of natural snow this year, but how many inches of manufactured snow, and at what cost? And can we continue as the winters continue to warm? Should we continue to pour money into manufacturing snow? Should we be pivoting in a different direction? Should we be adding something to it? These are all questions not for the budget committee to deal with tonight, but questions that I feel somebody has to be dealing with. And I don't feel confident that anybody is looking that far ahead. When my grandson is 25 years old and maybe skiing with his kid at the Snowball, is there going to be anything left to ski on? And is the lodge going to be totally fallen down because nobody's thought about building it up again?
Well, Nancy, that's quite a range of
yeah, but it boils down
questions.
to future thinking rather than anything very specific. Thinking about the future and planning for the future.
Well, so here's Beth. Beth, you and I had a conversation a year ago, and this came up just maybe 10 minutes ago. We have a college that's right up the street in Unity, and they have a degree granting operation, and they have students and they have interns, and it's all they have an entire department focused on ecotourism. And we would be, I just find it amazing that we're not involved with a college in this town that has such an asset. And here's the question, I'll just take where Nancy left off, is you, in this budget that we're looking at, where we see it balance out. We see all these increased numbers for the toboggan championship and the skiing, but we don't really budget, or I don't see a plan for, I think we got to start seeing a bus. We have to start making people not drive their car out to the Snowball because we have limited space for them. And for these events and these activities, they should be taking a bus. This idea of making people drive through these roads that are they're crowded already. And if we're going to make this a successful town asset, I think we're missing a lot of planning opportunities. And just going from what happened last year and adding on to what you want to do this year, it doesn't seem like, yeah, I'm sure there's a grant out there. But I still haven't seen or heard. I'd love, maybe you could publish it. You said you were going to share a lot of information, Audra, on the website. This would be a good one to really promote, either a 5 and a 10-year plan. How much money are we talking about? I mean, what'd you say, 4 million?
7.
7, okay. Sarah, I'm sorry, I saw your hand up.
And then Julia, so I guess this ties, I guess it's in similar vein, but it ties specifically into what is and it's being presented in this budget. I know there's a grant. I don't even know if I lived here in Camden historically, when, lodge updates were happening, but I guess if I'm reading it correctly, there's $1,000 only being allocated for any type of building improvement. And I guess my question is twofold. I think the first one is, when I think of building improvements, obviously there's only so much maybe that can be done when you think there's so much to do, but is that enough? And the second one, kind of tied to COVID, is I guess I had been hoped or would have expected that maybe some of the funding that has come through to perhaps build out, some warming stations, some things that are outside of the lodge that could serve as gathering places and spaces for individuals that maybe don't want to go into, a lodge that is not well ventilated. Again, I know COVID's one piece of it, but I guess I just am curious if there's any thought or budget allocation to putting some funding into extending some of those outside spaces and making it not only more accessible, but family friendly to be able to gather and not just necessarily, warm yourself in the minivan if going into the lodge in its current state is not, feeling as feasible. So I know it's 2 parts, but I'm just curious if that $1,000 is just, if there's anything else that I'm missing to put in towards those, types of improvements, knowing there's obviously a much bigger hill to climb.
Well, yeah. So that $1,000 for building improvements would be like, touch up paint, things like that. Building maintenance has a, 8,000 budgeted into that. And that's more of like fixing things that are broken or need replacement. We also share a building maintenance line with recreation that also has quite a bit of money that we also put back into the buildings here. So okay, the second part was the warming stations for people. We looked into that last year because we did not allow folks inside last year. It was only staff and volunteers that could come inside the lodge. And we tried to we ordered 5 of those porch propane heaters. They never got here. They got delivered to somebody else and we never got them. We looked into getting those like little igloo things like New York City had. They were all sold out. It was impossible to get our hands on anything. I was trying to figure out how to get a lean-to or a outdoor pavilion built. I had a couple of different local construction companies give me a quote, but it never grew any legs and it didn't happen.
So I guess just a quick follow-up, and I know then I'll pass it over. But so I guess my question is going into this particular budget, or if those were looked into but just couldn't get, attained at the time, are there still fiscal dollars baked into this? Should those things become available, recognizing that I know we're not in the height of the lodge is not open, but I think different time, different phase, the lodge is the state that it's in, to allow for some of that potential expansion to happen so that, visitors coming, people coming can have a different type of experience, in the outdoors. And can that, as materials, become available, is that still something that is part of a vision that can come to fruition, COVID or not, just to make the space more accessible?
Yeah, absolutely. We're always looking for ideas like that.
But is that baked into this budget, and should those things become available, I guess is my question.
It isn't intentionally in this budget, but I think there's enough wiggle room. If we decided to do something different, we can make it work.
But you haven't been able to make it work, Beth, because it's not your fault. It's because things were not available when you needed them. But if you were to be a little more proactive and think ahead about this, I don't think, for one thing, that COVID is going to go away. If it's not COVID, it's going to be something else. And I think Sarah's ideas are really terrific. It would be great to have that, whether we have COVID or infectious diseases or not. It would be great to have that kind of flexibility at the Snowball. It would be great to plan for that somehow.
Absolutely. The issues that we have are where, how, and paying for it. Mm-hmm. But I think it's a great idea. We definitely bought a lot more picnic tables during COVID, and we've stashed them all over the town of Camden. And a lot of those tables came back out here for the winter. We sold parking spots, the ski clubs sold parking spots. And a lot of folks had campers out here, and they were doing their own different skiing and having their own warming huts. And we've been pretty relaxed when it comes to, if somebody calls and says, can I bring my camper for the weekend? Not that they're camping out in it, but they were using it as their warming hut.
But also, Beth, I want to answer to Nancy just a bit. In Beth's defense, Nancy, you got to recognize that this town we seem to always walk this strange line where there's a department called Parks and Rec, and they are supposed to be doing all of this summer maintenance, if you will, and caretaking of all sorts of areas. And then they have to also switch gears and run a ski area. And what I think what you bring up is maybe there is a place in this town finally, and I could almost guarantee it, if this and the select board is listening to this, they know it too, that if the foundation, this great foundation that helps support this asset, if this comes up to vote on a plan to go forward, I think you're going to hear people like you and me and others talk about, well, what is the strategic plan for 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now? So, and I know that the foundation that's the way they work, because when you raise, $5 or $10 million, it's for the future. So I really think that we are kind of at a turning point. This budget is 1.162 million. This is one of the more expensive budget items in our town, besides the school. Excuse me. So it's really difficult to find places where the future is baked into the budget, like Sarah said. Go ahead, Nancy.
Well, I just
and Jill's had her hand. I don't mean to interrupt, but Jill's also had her hand up. I want to just make sure you saw.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Sarah. It's hard to see when the screen sharing. I know I only see like 2 or 3 at a time. I guess I just want to continue on with that big picture question that Nancy and you are talking about, Peter, does us, a couple of weeks ago, we approved an additional person in the code and development office. Does this then free up, say, Jeremy Marks to do some big planning, big picture planning, apply for grants? I mean, it's a lot of work to do those kinds of things. And I know, Beth is running 2 huge departments with lots of, she doesn't have a development team doing fundraising and looking at grants. So is there overlap? Is that part of Jeremy's purview, your purview, Audra? Is that something that's kind of coming down the line then?
Yeah, it's funny you bring it up, Jill. I think I sat in Jeremy's office. It was either today or yesterday. The days are blurring together. And we had that exact conversation about, how once there's another person on board, it would free him up to do things like, a master plan for that. We were talking about, master planning for the Snowball, because, he hasn't had the time to sit down and do it. Things like the Round the Mountain Trail. And kind of, that's going to be a huge anchor for a bunch of other activities that are going to happen out there. Like, McNemba wants to invest a lot of both volunteer and money that they've raised in building mountain bike trails, but it's sort of very dependent on the Round the Mountain Trail being there. And, there's just a real need to get groups like, the Coastal Mountain Land Trust, McNemba, the trail runners that operate out of the Snowball, and also, the town to kind of sit down and figure out where's everything going to go, who's going to do what. And, a lot of that is work that, Jeremy is more than capable of doing when he has the time to do it. So, that's definitely something that's going to be on his list when he finally has the ability to have, time enough to do it.
Okay.
Peter, I have one last question for Beth.
Yes, Nancy.
Beth has a huge, I was talking about Jeremy having a lot on his shoulders. Beth has a huge amount on her shoulders. And it occurred to me in listening to all of us talking about this, that is it possible, and I don't understand what the structure is of the Snowball in terms of operations, who's at the head of it and who's underneath them and so forth. But most ski areas that are successful have an individual person who is, at the top of the peak and who's responsible for the whole thing. Beth, would that be a help to you? You would still be, Parks and Recreation would still be the ultimate supervisor, let's say, of the Snowball. But if there was some person who was simply devoted to managing the Snowball as a 4-season place, would that be a help? And seeing that the Snowball does make money, would there be funding available for that sort of thing? Or would it come out of the foundation? It's just a thought that occurred to me in listening to you all.
I'm ultimately responsible for the season. I do have a wonderful team. Holly's my assistant. She does a lot for me in the admin area. And Rochelle Gagney is our mountain manager, and she's new. She's new to it for 2 years, but she is a wonderful manager. She runs that crew and keeps them focused. And there are certain things that I definitely, when we're in the peak of the season, that, I do lean on Audra, I do lean on Jeremy, I do lean on some other town staff to help me in that, the vision and the journey and where we're going, because a lot of the times in the peak of the season, I can't think about that stuff. And there has, over the years, been different committees that have been created. The Parks and Rec Committee used to check in on the Snowball, on the financials, and that was a monthly meeting. And then there was a 4-season committee. It just never, again, grew legs, and we got through the redevelopment, and then we kind of let the dust settle. And I think we're ready to ramp up again. So we may need to have some action groups get together once we do apply for this grant and make some decisions going forward.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question, Beth? If I didn't know if anybody else had their hand up, sorry if anybody did. It's sort of getting back to the compressor question. I know you said you were looking at buying a couple used ones, but just, I think we had talked about this last year too, like how much did new ones cost? And is there a way to get is there any grants for equipment, or can we sort of piggyback and like roll that into any of the new build out of the grant that you're talking about for the lodge build out?
A great question. So a brand new compressor, the power that we would need is about $100,000. The two used ones that we have found, one is like 32,000 and one is 41,000. And they have low hours and they can be serviced, and we're confident that that will take care of it. As for your question about grants, we're looking into the grant that we just got awarded through the land water conservation through the state. Does have, you can match, you have to give them a 20% match to the fee that they're going to give to the town. And we are asking them right now if the purchase of those two compressors can be used as a match, which would help us financially in the future.
That's great.
Peter, I think Pamela had her hand up before Courtney.
Just gonna say.
Oh. Okay, where's Pam?
Pamela.
There she is. Yeah.
Okay,
Hi.
thank you. Sorry,
Yeah,
go
hi,
ahead.
Beth. Yeah, I just wanted to ask a question. I'm circling back a little bit, I guess, to Nancy's comment about having somebody with you that was sort of just supervising the Snow Bowl, and just the Snow Bowl. I was wondering, as I recall, the harbor master position has a winter position at the Snow Bowl, and I was wondering what his role was there in the winter.
Steve, when Steve started with the town, he worked for Public Works for a year or so, and that just didn't work out. So he came over to the Snow Bowl and actually went and got his ski patrol license and certification. And so he's one of our full-time on the mountain ski patrollers.
Oh, okay. All right, great. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions for Beth or Audra or the select board? Well, I'm just gonna say it one more time, Beth, that I think you'll be hearing suggestions from not just me, but if it sounds like you've made references, and so has Audra, and so it sounds like you've even had Jeremy making references to a plan. But it really needs to be. We'll see it. We'll see it unfold. It needs to be a true plan, and not hopeful. This budget is it's been put together. You know, you've survived quite a few challenges in the last at least one and obviously 2 years, and we've got a whole lot to go. But I will say that a 5-year plan and a 10-year plan will be a big plus, because you're not going to be there forever, and neither will a whole bunch of people. So, and if a plan is in place, I think we even had one in place from Mr. Cooler. I think he had quite a visionary plan, not perfectly spelled out, but it certainly was a visionary thing. Does anybody want to make a motion? Do you want to leave the numbers the way they are? Does anybody want to remove anything, add anything?
I'll move to accept the proposed budget of $1,162,587.
I'll second that.
Questions, comments? Can you repeat that number again, Jill?
Yeah, so I'm looking at the first page, the summary page. And so the expense and the revenue, they aren't the
Oh,
same.
right, right.
It's $1,162,587.
All those in favor? Opposed? Okay,
I
thank you.
wish we had a system like the Monterey Bay Aquarium where we could give a green light, a red light, or a yellow light. And I would have a blinking yellow light at this point, but in lieu of that, I will vote the green light to go ahead.
Thank you, Nancy. All right, so it looks like we're go on to the wastewater budget. Am I close?
Audra, do you mind
Mhm.
doing a screen share like you did before? Because I wasn't able to print off the ones that Janice sent earlier.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You mind just zooming in a little?
Oh,
If that's
certainly.
okay. Thank you.
Is that better? A little bit better?
Slightly. There, that's good, at least for
Yeah.
me. it is.
Thanks.
I don't know if anybody's using their phone, but if you are, like I am, but you can like zoom in on it too. I don't know if you're on a computer or not, Sarah, but
I am, and Devin has my phone, so yes, this is good. This works.
So do we have Dave Bolstridge? I see that he's here.
Says he's here.
Got his microphone off?
No? Oh, maybe he has.
Oh, I think he just turned it off.
Okay.
Can I just say that number, the 0.16%, that's the lowest number we've seen in weeks.
Can you hear me, Audra? Or?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'll rather than go to every line here, I'll just talk about the highlights. And if you see something that I didn't talk about, just ask a question, and we'll stop and go back to that line. If that works okay for everybody. And,
Okay, thank you, Dave.
And you probably heard we've got a consent agreement with DEP to stop bypasses into the harbor during rain events. And so a couple of lines you'll see down where the engineering and professional services line is. So that has gone up quite substantially. The reason for that is we're getting engineering help to not only help us find the issues, but also to help us interact with DEP, making reports and that type of thing. We're going to use them for technical expertise, if you will. And then down at GIS updates, our GIS system hasn't been maintained or updated for many years. And one thing that DEP wants us to do is have a good grasp of all our infrastructure. And so we're going to go ahead and improve our GIS system. And that is about it on this first page here. All right. On the second page, you'll see that chemicals have come up quite a bit. There's two reasons for that. We've been told by the supplier that rates are going up, but also we're going to start disinfecting our effluent year-round. Until now, we only did it seasonally, spring, summer, and fall, and we didn't chlorinate in winter. We're going to go ahead and do that all year round, and actually our next permit with DEP, they're going to require that, but we're going to do that ahead of time here. And then of course electricity jumped up quite a bit. We all know why that happened, and then the next to last line, the sludge removal, that's up in the air because of PFAS. So I've added some extra money. If that's landfilled instead of composted, yeah, the price will go up more. And I think that's it on that page. The next page here, the pump station operation and maintenance. The maintenance line has gone up quite a bit to 50,000. That's because one of our pumps in Bayview, we're going to overhaul it. It needs an overhaul, and now's the time to do it. Otherwise, that's other than electricity, of course, that is just about the same as last year. Moving on to capital reserves. We're putting money away to do projects like changing out sewer pipes, buying new equipment, and by putting money in year after year, you don't have a great big expense when you have to go out and buy that piece of equipment. And also, we have an upgrade reserve as well to get us into the loan once the loan payback starts. And then the next page, capital improvements. We've got quite a few this year. Free Street is going to be paved. What we do when Public Works say, "Hey, we're going to pave a road," we go ahead and look at the sewer pipe on that street and decide whether or not it should be changed out. And as it turns out, Free Street will be paved, and the pipe is in bad shape. It's old clay pipe. And so we're going to go ahead and replace that pipe and the manholes on that street before the paving is done. And Pearl Street will also be paved, and one section of that is in bad shape as well. So we're going to change that pipe out, and you can see that between the two of them, it's about $500,000 to do that. And let's see, the other issue is the I&I study. And here again, that's to get us to the point where we remove I&I in the system and satisfy DEP's consent agreement.
Hey, Dave, explain I&I just one more time for everybody.
Yeah, that's inflow and infiltration into the sewer system.
Thank you.
And that is about it. And that last line is where we stand with the reserve balances.
Hey, Dave.
Yes.
How many employees do you have in your department?
We have 6 employees.
Counting you?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Yeah, we take care of everything, the plant, the collection system, and the pump stations. your bigger towns, cities will have different divisions to do those, but we do everything.
It's a big job.
I have a question. I should have asked this also with the Snowball. The line for the proposed budget, is this the department head's budget, or Audra, were you is this your proposed budget, or do you work in tandem to come up with that column for the fiscal year 23?
It's a good one.
So yeah, we work together.
One question, Dave.
Okay.
So the GIS updates. So we've got a Department of Public Works, Mr. Saint Laurent, has spent a lot of time and money and effort, successfully, I think, mapping all of these catch basins and all sorts of stormwater.
Right.
And so you mean to tell me that Public Works has not helped you, or you haven't dovetailed, or you have not been able to get started up until now for GIS work?
Well, we do have a GIS system. And, it just made sense this year to go ahead and do that upgrade, given the DEP requirements to, improve our performance.
The consent agreement, right? Oh, okay, yeah. I see. And it's a $50,000 price tag.
Yeah, and actually, in FY22, you can see we have $40,000 earmarked for GIS as well. What we have to do, when they first started the GIS system, they used photos to try to get all the manholes in the system, and of course, trees in the way. They had to kind of guess where the manholes were, and so that now that's not acceptable. So we're going to have a company come in, GPS all the manholes, and improve our map, the accuracy of our map. And then this fiscal year, we're going to have a company update our map, including a lot of parameters that DEP wants seen on the maps that we don't have now.
So we spent $40,000 in 2022, right?
We're going to. That'll be paid off here this spring. We'll spend that money.
And then and then the next one that we're voting on tonight is 50.
Yes.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
Well, I do, but it's not related to what you just brought up, Peter. I think that's an interesting jump. I wanted to know a little bit more about the PSAS because, it's uppermost in everybody's mind. How do you scrub the sludge free of that? Or don't you, Dave? Does that happen at Unity?
No, it stays with the sludge. There's some technologies that are coming around that haven't been proven yet. They're pretty much on the drawing board. But these companies think that they can destroy the PFAS. But it's going to take a lot of energy to do that. Now, some of that energy can be recouped because your sludge is carbon.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, carbon burns. And so you could generate electricity with the sludge and try to offset the cost of the energy you're putting into that process. The only problem is these aren't proven technologies. And so, for a town our size, we'd never go ahead and jump on a technology like that without it being proven.
So in other words, if if it comes to that, this is something that will happen in Unity and not here in Camden. Is that correct? In other words, we don't really have, we do have to worry about it, but it's not a concern of the town in getting rid of the sludge.
No, that's right. The debate right now is whether or not they'll let Casella continue to compost some of the sludge, or if all of it goes to the state-run landfill in Old Town.
And is there any way at all of measuring how much of that material is in our town sludge? I guess.
Yes, DEP makes us test it.
Uh-huh.
And I've seen data from other plants, and we're pretty much in where everybody else is.
Uh-huh. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. You know, if towns that have paper mills that do coating, you know, their number is going to be higher.
Right.
So we're normal for a plant with no industrial users.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Anybody else have any questions, comments?
I do.
No, hi, Leisha, sorry. Go ahead, please.
The inflow and infiltration study, that's the project that's looking to find breaches of the septic system. Is that correct?
Well, it's water. We're looking for water that's going into the sewer system that shouldn't be there. Groundwater, rainwater, that type of thing. You know, for the last 3 years, we've gone into basements, find you know, things like floor drains and sump pumps that were going into the sewer system, and instead of the, so that's this is a continuation of that work, really.
I seem to recall last year there was talk of a study that was going on to try and find where there were leaks in the sewage and septic system that could be, you know, running up nutrients in our harbor and in the river. Am I mistaken?
Well, I don't think we're impacting the river. The harbor, you know, because of this excess fresh water getting into the system, especially during rain events and snow melt, we overwhelm a couple of the, or we can overwhelm a couple of the pump stations, and they can't pump all the water to the plant for treatment. And so there's bypass pumps that will put some of the sewage into the harbor if we have a big enough rain event. So that's probably what you're talking about.
Thank you.
What makes that study so expensive, other than going around to people's houses? Like, I remember, you know, when they did come in and look in the basement to make sure the drains were going where they were supposed to go. But what is it that makes it that number?
Yeah, we're getting engineering help, and so you've got professional engineers that are working on this. They'll be you know, kicking out reports. Some we can present to DEP, and you know, we have to finalize this. So we want to make sure that we have enough money to finalize it and meet our deadlines in the consent agreement.
So you're essentially giving a group of people or a person the information that you've collected, and they're putting it in the report for DEP. Did I understand that correctly?
No, well, that's part of it, but also we have to find more water. We haven't found enough water that's going into the system yet, and so they're going to help us establish where that water is coming from as well.
Okay. Okay, anything else for Mr. Bostridge? So do you all understand that just as very similar to the Snowball, the last 2 pages of these budget, he has a lot of different departments, has a lot of different numbers, but at the end, the last 2 pages as one is revenue and one is expense. And his expense is 2,113,548. And isn't that funny? Because his revenue is 2,113,548. So that's what we're voting on tonight. And you can see it's gone up. Does everybody see that?
Yep.
So you're investing in sanitary conditions for our future, for the community.
I don't know about other people, but I feel like I need to learn a lot more about this to be able to understand how it all works and all that stuff. I remember last year we were going to try to set up a like a walkthrough and that sort of thing. I don't think it ever happened, but I'm still interested in doing something like that if that's a possibility.
You're talking about the treatment plant walkthrough.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right now we've got a lot of construction going on, so it'd be difficult to do that right now. But once that construction's done, by all means, love to give you a tour of the place.
But you could
July would be a good
Court-
time to do that, Dave, or, I mean, I'd love to line it up. And I'm sure.
Well,
Courtney would
we'll
too.
we'll see. I have to see where we are in the construction phase. Right now, the date for completion of the project is next January.
Mm.
But Courtney, that's a great question, but also that I think you could probably find some amazing tutorials, or if you will, or actually high school and middle school, if you will, or illustrations online that actually explain absolutely every item in a sewage treatment plant and why it's important. But also realize that a Mainer, Ed Muskie, was the force that helped pass the Clean Water Act many years ago. So, and it actually made a law that we actually needed to have a sewer plant because a lot of communities were dumping sewage right into the ocean or the lakes. Or well, okay, anyway. So it's a great question, and I think Allison has brought it up on a couple of occasions that eventually we will have a tutorial or a bunch of billboards down by the sewage plant, because a lot of people walk down on a riverbank and they actually don't get it. Number one, why is this stupid sewage plant here? And what goes on? Why do I need to care? And oh, why is it costing me $2 million, this budget? So, okay, sorry. Anyway, that's a great question, Courtney.
I just had one comment. So I'm just looking at the net expenses. They're increasing 24.76%. And lo and
Thank you.
behold, that's the exact percentage that the user rate is going up. So that increase in expense is being passed on to us, the users, anyone on the town wastewater. So I just wanted to just maybe in a nutshell, for people that are already mad about the assessed values going up, what can I say to them? What is driving that almost 25% increase in a nutshell? What's the talking point here?
Yeah, it's the upgrades we're doing. Just backing out that the upgrades, the plant was built in construction was in 1969, and typically with a treatment plant, the life of the equipment is usually right around 20 to 25 years, and a lot of the equipment at our plant is 50 plus years old. So it needed a big upgrade to bring us back to where we should be. A lot of the equipment was obsolete, and you can't find, couldn't find parts for it. So that, this is one of the reasons why it went up as much as it did.
So I think that, the like Dave said, the upgrade, we still aren't at a point where we're paying for the debt service on the upgrade. That's not going to happen until we're actually done with construction. But what we've been trying to do is put away money over the past, I believe, 4 years in a staged manner. So everybody isn't hit all in 1 year with that debt service. And it's, it's a more gradual increase in rates. So, that's what that 500,000 in that reserve account is for. But also on top of that, there's some, big capital projects like the Pearl Street project. And because the stormwater is going to be worked on there and it's going to be, resurfaced, it's sort of a good opportunity to address all the subsurface infrastructure at once, including the sewer there, the part of the street that needs a sewer upgrade. So, it's just one of those things where we have the opportunity to do it and not put ourselves in a position where we would, fix up a road and then go back a few years later and have to put a pipe in.
Yeah, very, very often, since I've been here anyway, we've typically only done one project a year. And on top of that, Pearl Street, the section is really long compared to a lot of the streets. And so, that is unusual to spend that much on the changing out pipe in a year. But it's going to be very worthwhile to do that this year.
But Jill brings up a great point, because we will be asked, we will be approached, and deferred maintenance is something that we've got plenty of in this area, not just this town alone. But anyway, any other questions, comments?
Just out of curiosity and I don't have it pulled up in front of me, so I can't remember exactly what it was under, but like you said, Audra, the 500,000 that we're putting away to kind of build up that surplus, if we didn't do 5,000, let's say we did, or not 5,000, sorry, 500,000, if we did like a 300,000 instead, I mean, I don't know if that would even make that much of a difference, or like a 250, what would we be looking at if we did less this year and just did it, a couple years longer to get that amount that we need? Would that make any difference for taxpayers, or is that not a taxpayer thing? Do you know what I'm saying?
It make a difference for ratepayers. I guess it's just a question of, so if we do that this year, it would certainly bring the rate down. But
when you say rate, what is that?
Oh, sorry,
for
what you pay for wastewater.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So it would certainly bring that down. I guess
so that's how that's getting paid. It's not necessarily from us as taxes. It's from the wastewater that we're paying to. Okay. Gotcha.
Correct.
Right.
Yep. So I guess, the only downside to that would be, I think, probably, I don't know if it'd be 2024 or 2025 when that actual debt service payment comes online. It's just, how big a difference is everybody comfortable with? Because I think we're looking at that debt service payment being about 650,000 a year. So it's kind of getting accustomed to having that be a year in, year out payment.
Gotcha.
This is not a new, this sewer plant has been on everybody's project list and budgeted and planned for how many years, Audra?
Well, the actual study to do the upgrades to the plant, I think that was
Yeah.
done either 2 years before I started or
Right,
or a
okay.
year. So
Right,
7,
okay,
8
so this is,
years.
right, so this has been well in worked, and overworked, and it put off, and so it is expensive, as we will learn about other projects going ahead. Not next, well, yeah, next year and years after, as far as systems and capital improvements around town. Any other questions? Do we have a motion? Courtney,
Sure.
you could take that, you could make a motion if you want to take that 500,000 out, if you think that's a good idea.
Well,
Yeah.
that's one of the things that I was saying, like, it's not that when you were talking about how the wastewater treatment plan works, it's not that I don't understand that, which I don't, and I would like to learn more, but it's more about just how all of the money kind of goes into it and how much things cost to fix. And I like learning about those things so I can understand the budget better.
Mhm.
And like that, I had, and like I said, I didn't get to print those off. So, if I remember correctly, trying to remember, it said like $10.26 or something like that per 100 cubic, whatever that
1088.
was.
Yeah.
Thank
yeah.
you. And so is that, I mean, and that's essentially the increase to the,
1027, excuse me, that's what they're recommending, will probably cost $10.27 for 100 cubic feet.
and
in
do we know,
2020.
I don't have my bill in front of me, but I'm just curious what it's at now. Is it around that same, or that's an increase to make for that 500,000?
Right, so it was $8.23
Oh, so
currently.
that's not a ton. I mean,
No,
that's not a big
It's
difference.
almost 25%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if it would make a difference. Like Audra said, if going, we need to have it be at a certain amount for the 24-25 year. I don't know if it would make a difference. It just seemed like quite a big number. But I don't want to make a motion on something if it doesn't make sense. And I don't know enough about it to say if it does or not.
Can I ask if the capital reserve, does that accrue interest? So we're putting money away, conceivably it'll get some interest, instead of just kicking the can down the road and just having this huge bill. So I guess I would say I'm in favor of, paying now and make it hurt less later.
Well, and also on top of that, Jill and Courtney and Audra, we can increase the amount of money that is that you've proposed for taxpayer support, if you will. You want to put out to use surplus 800,000 estimated to offset to lower our tax rate, right? You've included 800,000 for use of surplus funds and the estimated revenues. We could increase that from 800,000 to 1.5 million, couldn't we?
You could certainly, you could certainly recommend that.
And that would answer Courtney's question about removing 500,000 from the wastewater budget. I mean, as far as timing, and also impact to the taxpayer.
So just to be clear, are you saying, Peter, adding that to the revenue in the general fund budget and then using it to offset that expense in the wastewater budget?
Okay, no, I had that wrong. I'm sorry. Okay, just a second. Well, okay, I'm off track now. Let's get back to the wastewater budget.
Peter, Allison has a question, I think.
Allison, what's up?
Yeah, so just, really quickly, it's taken me a lot to wrap my head around this. I've spent a lot of time asking questions, but, unfortunately, this comes as a shock a little bit, raising rates. But when you look at it in perspective, Camden has historically had some of the lowest wastewater rates in the state of Maine. And we have just a massive backlog of things that have been underfunded. One of the issues is that actually our rates have been so low in terms of a statewide comparison that we don't even qualify for additional funding or help from the DEP, because on a lot of these issues, because when they look at this, they say, okay, Camden's got all kinds of problems. We're having these overflows, we're having different things, but their budget doesn't show that they're even investing enough in the system to qualify for needing help. So it does feel like a hike, but for years and years and years, taxpayers did fund the build out of the system in Camden. So it was all being really subsidized by taxpayers, and we're moving to this user rate funded system. Right. You've probably heard what's happening in Rockport a little bit with their rates. They've never had taxpayer support. It's always been just user fees. But what's happening in Camden now, it's not going to be as bad as it is in Rockport, because we did already have that really big sort of base level investment. But it's pretty bad with the amount of stuff that still needs to be done. So it's probably going to increase. We did this massive investment in our wastewater treatment plant and the actual way that we're treating it. But then we have all of the collection system. Earlier, Courtney asked about what this, the study that we're doing. And so what we did before is we went around and tried to find all the sources of water coming in through the basements and private property. But what we haven't done yet is a really hard look at all the sources that are in the town roads and the collection system, which is probably a larger source. So unfortunately, it's a complicated problem. And one of the things that was told to me when I contacted the DEP is that per capita, Camden releases more wastewater, untreated wastewater into the harbor or into the bay than like any other place. So everybody has these overflows and these issues, but in bigger towns have more accidental, unintentional releases. But Camden per capita is pretty high. So we do.
That's good. Thank you.
Need to set things up.
No, that was very helpful, and I think the point that Jill brought up, this is excellent, Allison, because what Jill brought up is that, and Courtney is I think we're all sensitive to this. We're going to see our tax bill go up an incredible amount because of this adjustment and this reevaluation, and so you're showing that, okay, we're reinvesting in our equipment to handle these deferred maintenance on a lot of this infrastructure, but we've got to figure out a way to use our excess capital that's in these accounts to help some people that are on fixed incomes that really truly are working 2 jobs, 3 jobs, and trying to pay their home taxes, whether it's in their family or I really think that this budget, we haven't talked about it a whole lot, and maybe Courtney was bringing up the 500,000, like maybe this would help.
Yep, people should ask for help from the, we can't use taxpayer money anymore for the overall budget for the wastewater plant, but what we can do is use the trust funds to help individuals who are having a really hard time with those bills. So it's it's a very good point.
So, all right, that was getting us back on track. So thank you, Allison. Any other questions? Okay. Jill?
I was just going to say, I was just going to move to accept the wastewater budget of $2,113,548.
Okay, so it's moved and seconded. Anybody else? Anything? Makes, all those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Okay, so Audra, this is the last part, right?
Yes, and Jody pointed
so-
out, oh, sorry,
Yeah.
I was gonna say, Jody
No.
pointed out to me that you haven't voted on the contingency line yet. So that's sort of the final piece before you do your
Contingency.
final vote.
Well, okay,
Where is that, Audra? What document?
Contingency is on page 38.
okay. Oh, that's right. And I want to go back while you're, and maybe Jody could help me or Janice. And I know I asked for this once before, but I could you give me the number that we approved for the Snowball budget? That we voted on and approved right now. I mean, an hour ago.
You approved 1,162,587.
162.
587.
587. Okay, thank you. All right. So this contingent, this page 38. Okay, let me get this. I like this. This is going down 100%. That's
No, it looks like it's the same.
but it was a year ago, it was almost 70,000.
No, that's what was spent in that's FY22 actual.
Oh, right. Okay, sorry. Okay, so who manages this account?
So the select board, we typically bring any expense, any contingency expense to the select board for approval.
When was the last time we used it?
That's a good question. Jody, do you remember the last?
Our last expense was in January for valuation reval consulting through KRT.
And that cost how much?
That was 7,500.
All right. And is that the only item that we need to vote on, or are we going through this entire page 38?
So I think, yeah, the entire page 38 would cover off on all your final numbers you need to vote on.
Okay. So is everybody clear on the contingency at the top of this page?
Yeah, I see the miscellaneous. Maybe you can explain the other ones, just kind of go down the line of exactly what we're looking at, what we'd be voting on.
Yep, absolutely. So there's the contingency account, and that's sort of a standalone if there are any unanticipated major expenses that we don't feel like they can be absorbed in the operating budget, or there just isn't an obvious place for them to come from. We would ask for it to be spent out of contingency. So the next line, it's the town general fund expense. So that is, the overall, every single department that you've voted on so far, that's the cumulative amount of expenses. And then the line after that, and it actually isn't showing up on my, let me see if it shows up. Yes, the revenue line. So that's all of the property tax-based revenues that we're projecting can be raised in FY '23. And so from there, you get the net town general fund budget. So it's just the, the expenses less the non-tax-based or non-property tax-based revenues. And then the next few lines, those are assessments. So that's all the stuff like mid-coast solid waste, the county assessments, the school assessments, some of them that we had when we were preparing the budget, some we didn't. But all of those are really kind of the, non-negotiable, we're obligated to pay them either by interlocal agreement or, legislation around how we fund schools in the county. So that's, and those aren't numbers that you need to vote on. We just sort of try to put them in there as advisory numbers only if we have them.
Okay, thank you. That was very helpful. Does anybody have any questions?
Do we get to know how much is in the total, like in the account for the contingency? Is that just for the year? And if it doesn't get used, then it goes somewhere else? Or is there like a bigger fund that's just adding $40,000 to a fund that's already there?
So I think Jody can probably tell you that number. So it's kind of like, any other area where we have an unexpended balance. So there's two things that could happen to it. Either it could be rolled into the surplus, or the select board could vote to carry it forward into the next financial year.
So right now the balance in that account, because the select board chose to carry forward from FY '21 into this current FY '22 budget, they carried forward 159,000. So current balance in this account is $131,260.
Thank you.
So do we have a motion? Do we have questions? We have a couple of items to vote on, the contingency, the general fund expense, and then the revenue, and then the bottom line fund budget, net town general fund budget. And that is it.
Quick question. So this was obviously printed before our committee met. So did the general fund expense ever change based on things we voted on, and then therefore the revenue or the revenue side, so therefore that fund budget would have changed? Is there any difference than what we're seeing here? This is probably a Jody question. So just so we're voting on the right number, I guess.
Yep. So right now, there's been no vote yet by the budget committee for the contingency. You're at $10,378,510.
One more, could you say that again, Jody?
Sure. $10,378,510.
And then the revenue?
The current revenue, the town manager's recommendation for revenue is $4,099,427.
Okay, so that's the same.
Yeah.
Well, I'll move to accept the contingency amount of 40,000 that's proposed by the town manager.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. Any comments? Questions? All those in favor? Any opposed? Okay, thank you. So next, let's just vote on those two other items. Do we have a motion?
two other items, you mean?
The general fund expense, I move we vote on the general fund expense. Jody, make sure I have this right. 10,378,510.
It's now 10,418,000.
510, okay.
Yeah.
I move we vote on the 10,418,510 and the general fund revenue of 4,099,427. Is that right?
That's correct.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any comments? All those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you, thank you. All right. So Audra, that takes care of 38. Is that correct?
Yes.
And we still, I'm sure, have something else to do. Is that correct?
That you've voted on everything that you need to vote on.
I have a question, just looking down at the schools, the line items for the schools. And I know last year we had Maria Libby presented. Then that I noticed early on that wasn't on our agenda ever. So what's the percentage increase there? I know we don't have any voting power on that at all, but can you just give me an idea of the percentage increase that they're proposing for next year?
Yes, so I was looking at this just before we started this meeting. So I think that it's different between the SAD and the CSD.
But
I'm trying to figure out which I'm looking at here.
It's on there.
With the SAD.
It's right on their front page of their website.
Yeah, we're looking at let me see what the bottom line is. So with the SAD, it's a 5.21% increase. And in dollar value, it's 451,580. So that's elementary school and the middle school. And for the CSD, apologies, I've got to bring up the PowerPoint.
Oh.
So for the CSD, it's a 0.47% increase.
Wow.
For the town of Camden.
Great. So just to sort of clarify, whatever then is voted on by the select board for the overall budget, for all the people, I know Peter mentioned too, the tax rate, we all got that letter this week, showing 15%, 20, 30. I've even talked to people with 40% increase in their tax evaluation. So conceivably, now that the valuation is raised quite a bit, the mill rate should go down based on just, pretty small percentage increase in a budget, and the schools. That's great to hear. I was thinking you were going to say something a lot higher. So maybe I don't know, is there anything that you can just share with just that process, because these are things that, like I said, people do ask us all the time.
Yeah, and I'm always nervous, and the assessors are similarly nervous to say, well, this is what the mill rate's likely to be. But when you pick up so much value, I think we're looking at close to 300 million, or maybe a little over that, of new value, or not new value, but increased value as a result of the real estate market. There's not always a direct my value went up 15%, so my taxes are going to go up 15%. So because there's there's some level of increase in the budgets for the the town, the school, the county, there will be a bit of an increase, but the mill rate is also inevitably going to go down. I mean, we haven't increased spending to the point where it would cancel out all the increases in value that we've experienced this year.
That's what I thought. Great. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So I mean, I don't want to give an exact amount, but it definitely is going to be a decrease in the mill rate.
Right. So if just because your tax valuations went up 25%, 5% is the kind of the increase we're looking at generally, just municipal budget. So yeah. Okay. Thanks.
So what's the next step, Audra? Give us what I don't have the schedule of the select board, or I don't have what is yours and your department head's next steps, please.
So now that we have your recommendations to the select board, we need to schedule a time for them to have their review of the budget. And that needs to be done prior to April 5th, because that's the meeting where the select board votes on the warrant for town meeting. And so the warrant will include the article that has all the the budgetary figures on it, and that'll show the budget committee's recommendation as well as the select board's.
Is everybody clear on that?
So what Janice and I can do is we can make sure that when the select board schedules their review, we let all of you know. So anybody who's interested in seeing that conversation and having the opportunity to kind of see the process through to the end is informed about it.
Okay, thank you.
Does that mean that us as a budget committee now, where this is done, this is technically our last meeting? If not saying that, I'm like, yay, eager to get it done. But I mean, in terms of our responsibilities, we voted on everything we need to vote on, and then that's it.
Well, but
Is that right?
but Audra, yes, in one way, but she's also bringing up a very good point that the select board would also like to be able to, and you should take advantage of, as the collective body that you've spent all this time asking questions and learning and being processing all of these pieces of the town's spending of this year's budget. And the select board would love to have this opportunity to, everybody here has contributed. So yes, you're done, but you're really not done.
Yeah. No, I mean, just in terms of, I feel like it went so much longer last year. Like it went on for
It did.
Right?
But what this means is we have Thursday nights free, Courtney.
Sounds good.
You're released from your official responsibility. There are a couple of housekeeping things for all of you to vote on. So going into next year, and it was a little bit different last year because of the the change in the charter, but all of you, before you disband, you need to vote on a chair and a vice chair for next year. And this is sort of your opportunity, if you have any feedback for us on process stuff that you would like to see changed, as a group for FY24, that would be really helpful. So anything in terms of, do you like the sort of weekly meetings throughout the month of March? Would you like to see something different? Are you okay meeting on Zoom? Do you want to have hybrid meetings? Any sort of housekeeping stuff like that.
The town of Rockport meets twice a week for a couple of weeks in a row. And I do not think, or at least listening to all of you, I don't know if anybody in this group would want to do twice a week.
No. No,
Once a
no.
week was,
No way. I mean, I
So-
think most of us have a lot of chores that we have to do at this time of the evening. And I find frankly, meeting on Zoom is such a great help, because if I have to go, let the dog out or feed the kid or something like that, I can do it and still not miss the meeting. I think I've become really addicted to Zoom for all kinds of meetings. And I do
So-
like once a week. I think that's important.
so why don't Nancy, why don't you help find and suggest a chair and a vice chair for next year?
Gosh. Don't everybody rush to the forefront. I mean, I think it should be somebody who's willing to do it and who is has the energy to do it. And I would say that I would think that Jill would be a great chair, actually, if she's willing to do it.
Oh,
I was thinking Jill and Sarah as well.
Jill and
Yeah,
Sarah, that's a good idea. Yeah.
those are my two. Not to nominate, but
sure. Looking ahead to next year from now, I mean, conceivably. Sure.
I would like to see it not, and I don't know if we can actually do this, but really keep it from I don't know. I mean, 9 o'clock just gets to be, especially for doing a lot of stuff, my brain just shuts down because I've been up, since really early, and I don't know about anybody else, but I start to just lose it and be able to, because I'm just so tired and I lose the focus. So I didn't know if maybe we can really keep it at maybe a 6:30 to 8:30 or something, and have it be just 2 hours and that's it. And then if it goes over the, month of March, then, it goes over by a week or something. But I didn't know if that's something else that happened to other people or not.
It does to me, for sure.
I'm a 5 a.m. riser, so yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, I'm it's
So
too much.
maybe meeting at from 6 until 8:30 would be a better idea.
Or even 6 to 8, maybe.
Yes, but we don't want to go over too much into April, because there are these other dates that
That's
have to be
true.
accommodated in April.
And is the
That's true.
start date of when the meetings start fixed by when you have all your info to pull the budgets together? I mean, you have a small window to close out the year. So really, you can't start any earlier than the day that we start in March, right?
Yeah, I mean, even when we start, there's often, a lot of stuff that we don't have from, it's mostly, external organizations like the water company, or, like the assessments for the schools and all of that. So yeah, I think there'd just be a lot more unknowns if we tried to start earlier, unfortunately.
Yeah, so we have this fixed window. But I do like the idea. I turn into a pumpkin right about now. So I do like the idea of starting earlier and finishing earlier. And then if we do have things where we weren't able to get in, I mean, I know I'd be open to meeting another night or Saturday morning, just if there were some loose ends.
Yeah.
And I'd like to propose doing one in person, just because I haven't met a lot of you in person. And
I miss doing things in person. I was just talking about that today. I'm I like doing things in person more than Zoom. That's just me personally. I like the option, like you said, the hybrid, the
hybrid.
Yeah.
Well, but and we're almost ready to make a motion here, and because this is great follow-up feedback. But Audra, I did mention, and maybe next year we could try it, but these department heads could send us PowerPoints ahead of time to introduce us to what is their department, how is it run, here are the people, this is what we do. I mean, it just would be a little bit of a time saver. Of course, they could go through it, but it could help get some more information in front of us before the meeting. It's just a suggestion. Do we have a motion for to wrap this up and adjourn? Could we have new chairs? Sarah, why don't you make a motion?
To not be chair, no. I will make. I will advocate for a hybrid for meetings, because I think this is the third state I've been in this series of meetings that we've had. So I think I love in person if possible, but I also love the hybrids. Just wanted to put that out there as a request. So what am I proposing? To adjourn? Oh, I'd like to.
And you and Jill will be chair and vice chair next year.
Do we have to
Okay.
vote on that then, Peter? Do we have to vote on them as chair
Oh,
and
wow.
vice chair?
I believe so. I believe so. That
Shouldn't we
was,
make
that
sure
was-
that they actually want to do it before we force them to do it? I've
would
been
like
forced
to
into
move
those
that
positions
we
before,
accept
and
Jill Delano and Sarah Scrivanich as our, shall I call them joint chairs for next
Yes,
year?
that would be, yes.
Then we can,
Yes.
yeah, then we can figure it out. That's it.
Yeah.
Right.
sounds
That's
fine.
perfect. Okay.
Anybody second it?
I second
I
it.
second it.
Okay, good.
All those in favor?
Me.
Anybody opposed?
Andy's not here, so I haven't asked him, but we can run it.
That's good. We'll talk to him.
Yeah.
And I
Um,
one more quick question before we adjourn. I noticed that
Yeah.
there's a couple of us that are like the class of 24. There's no class of 25. So what's the mechanism? It's a 3-year appointment. So what's the mechanism for getting new people? It looks like we're going to lose a big, 4 people this year.
Yes, so great question, Jill. So anybody who is interested, and I'm not sure if there needs to be a year break, but it's still an elected position technically. I don't know if many people on this board went through the town meeting election process because we haven't had one in a couple of years. So it's an elected position where you take out papers and people vote on you, or you could be a write-in candidate. It's been an elected position by charter, since the beginning, but it's really, I don't know if any of you have gone to the open town meetings where, the nominating committee wasn't able to get enough new budget committee members. So the select board sitting up on the stage would just be like, okay, I see so-and-so in the audience. You want to be on the budget committee? All those in favor of putting so-and-so on the budget committee. So yeah,
I think that's how I got on it. But like Allison was like, hey, do you want to be on it? I was like, sure. Like there wasn't, I don't ever remember doing anything like that. Is that how you're saying it would happen again?
So if you're interested in doing it again, definitely take out papers, or you could be a writing candidate.
But there is a nominating committee, you said? So
There's no nominating committee anymore. There used to be, but they had a hard time coming up with a slate of new people. So that, that was a system that, worked a long time ago, but as the Charter Commission was doing their work to review, sort of how the town works and, just generally how we're governed, they realized that the budget nominating committee wasn't as, successful in getting nominees as they had been in the past. So that's gone now. So it's just direct anybody who wants to be on the budget committee again, take out papers or, get friends to write you in.
okay, or I think it might be our job to recruit people too.
Or absolutely, that would be wonderful.
Find our replacements essentially. So
That
that's
would be
kind of how
wonderful.
I ended up on this committee myself.
I mean, that's really the best way. And it's, it's a really great way to, as you all know, learn about the town and the inner workings. And yeah, we'd love your help in recruiting people to be on it because, you have a much better idea of friends and neighbors who would be interested.
So get to work, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Audra.
Audra, one quick question. When's the deadline? So if we're out recruiting others, what is the deadline for them to submit papers?
Oh, I was afraid somebody's going to ask. I believe it's the April 15th. Anyone who
Okay,
knows?
that's what I had in mind too.
Yeah. Am I right, Jody? Or
I think it's April 15th,
yeah.
I think. Or the 14th.
How many
I
new
think-
people do we have to have for the next
Wow.
committee? How many people are terminating out?
I think 4 are coming out.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we have, do you have a question, Mark? Looks like Mark Ratner has his hand up. No? Yes?
Yes. Hold on. Got to get my computer. Yes, I do. Before everybody adjourns, I just want to, and I'm sure, all the rest of the select board members are watching too. I want to thank everybody for doing this. It's tough. It's hard. It takes a lot of studying, a lot of time. I'd like to especially thank Peter for all the homework from being the chairman. I think he's done an excellent job this year.
Perfect.
And, we get to watch it. And this has been a good year of a lot of good questions and a lot of good information. And I appreciate everyone's help, because it's a lot of help for us to hear all the questions. There are always questions that we wouldn't think of to ask ourselves that you've been asking. So it's important. And one other thing, Nancy, I was the one that talked about using the trust fund for helping people with oil and gas. And if anybody knows anybody,
You all look alike when you're up there on the podium, Mark.
if anybody knows anybody that needs help with their oil bill or their gas bill or their sewage bill, please have them call Janice in the town office, because we have the trust fund. It's not tax money, and there's money to help people, because right now I know it's a particularly difficult time for everybody. So, so thanks
Thank you.
everybody, and I will.
Thank you, Mark.
I will disappear.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, do we have a motion on the floor? Yes, we do. Do we have a
Yes.
second?
Oh, we have a motion about the chairs for next year. Yes, I don't know.
That's
do we-
right. That's right. All those in
So-
favor?
Didn't we already vote on that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought so. Okay. Did
I'd like to-
do we have to do a motion on the time change? Can we do that, or is that just a consensus?
I
To
think
do
we
it.
should discuss that next year.
We
Who
can
knows?
just, we can just,
We may be on permanent daylight savings time next year too. We
right.
don't
Let's
know.
just, I think we need a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, I move
about
that we
that?
adjourn, that the budget committee of the town of
Okay.
Camden adjourns for the 2023 budget discussion. How about that?
I'll second.
All those in favor? Thank you.
Good night, everyone. Thanks.
Night,